Oh,
It
I
is.
see. I
What?
see someone out there. What's he doing?
Oh my God. This is so embarrassing. I was on a date with myself. It's kind of.
That boy's masturbating. Lisa, you wouldn't
Lisa,
believe it.
What? No.
Lisa, we got a masturbator.
Not on can. No, I can't tell if is this a joke or.
I'm doing a bit based on today's movie.
Oh.
Yeah,
I thought
The-
you
the
saw.
peeper.
I thought you saw me before we hit record when I was masturbating.
At the
Before
office?
before we
That's
recorded
not-
this, I
no.
was jacking off up here. So I
Well,
thought it
now
was
that
a.
we've lost our elementary school audience, welcome everybody to today's episode of Movie Club, adults only.
Yeah. Well, Rear Window, what is that? It's probably rated R anyway. So it
Yeah,
shouldn't,
no,
shouldn't even be
it
watching
is.
this.
Today we are doing Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window. This is a Sean pick.
Yeah. I picked this movie. We had to watch it in high school. We had a Hitchcock section in English class, and we watched a handful of Hitchcock movies. I'd never seen any of them. And then this one, it was like, when you watch a movie in school where you watch like 45 minutes at a time, and then you have to come back the next day to finish it or whatever.
Yep.
Like half of the movie, I just kept thinking about it. Like this one, like really stuck with me. I really like this one. So.
Not to derail here, but I will say I think that's why I have such a vendetta against the movie Gattaca, because we were watching that in like 8-minute chunks over an English class that I took. It took like 6 months of my life to finish Gattaca. So just want to
I
put that
have
out
the
there.
opposite. Every time I see Gattaca, I think, not reading a book today.
Yeah.
Yep.
See, I wish.
And then-
I wish we watched it a whole period, but no, we watched like 8 minutes every day for like 6 months. Anyway, go ahead.
Also, I don't know, October Sky with Jake Gyllenhaal. I probably saw 10 million times in school.
Hey, obviously, by our film references, you could tell we were in high school a long time ago.
Long time ago.
Do they still play October Sky in school, or is it just Avengers Endgame and doing the science of Thanos?
It's so funny because I've heard everyone tell me the October Sky thing, and I never watched that in school.
Half.
I've
seen that movie 20 times in 20 different classrooms.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm with you, Derek.
I watched my class watched Lorenzo's Oil, and I've already told you this, but when there's a point where the kid falls off a Christmas tree, and I laughed out loud, and I was talked to for like 3 hours about like, it was like a psychological evaluation, but I knew it was a movie, so I knew it was a fake kid.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I did a report in school where I made fun of my own mother and had a 20-minute talking to from the teacher, and I was like, "Are you my mom? Did I offend you?" My mom's cool with it.
Yeah,
But-
she liked it.
Yeah, that's neither here nor there, because today we are doing hold on, Rear
Yeah.
Window, baby.
The ultimate peeping Tom epic.
Yeah, so Sean just kind of told us why he chose this film. Anything else other than you watched it in high school you wanted to revisit?
I hadn't seen it in a while, honestly, and I put it on my list of like one of my favorite movies ever, and then I have a poster for it here in the garage. I have a whole thing, and then I was like, I haven't seen this movie in like 10 years. I should watch it again. So this would be a good excuse to watch it. And I remember thinking in school, this movie was great. I loved it all, and the ending is lame. That was my thought then, and I was curious if I had the same thought now.
Yeah.
I think so. This movie was made in 1954 by Alfred Hitchcock. Some would say America's greatest filmmaker. And 1954 was a different world. And I think Jimmy Stewart, the main character, is supposed to be like kind of like a villain. At least in the way this movie is marketed, because look at the film poster behind me.
Yeah.
Look at the look on his face. And who do we see? Who's he looking at here?
Yeah.
Just some girl, having a good time.
Yeah.
And that is like half the movie is he's watching this babe who he calls Mrs. Torso in some pretty lewd shots that I was not expecting for 1954.
I agree with you. And what's interesting about this movie is this is the first time I saw a movie where it really just took place in one place. Like it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
but you're riveted and it's like in like suspense the whole time, which I really thought was so cool back then, and I still do now.
Yeah.
And even watching it now, I'm watching this. I know what happens, and there are moments where I'm still like, oh, like it's like it's still good.
Yeah,
it's still
it holds up in that sense a lot. And you wouldn't expect it to, but I was gonna say Hitchcock had a lot of experience with that kind of thing that you mentioned, Sean, because you know, a movie that a lot of people I know, even if they really like Hitchcock, I know a lot of people who haven't seen this movie, but he did a movie called Rope. Did you ever see that one?
I did see Rope a lot, but I vaguely remember that was like back in the school days.
Yeah, but even that, if you watch it now, I'm not even saying it's like the most mind-blowing movie you've ever seen, but he was kind of the first person to experiment with like, he wanted to do the whole movie one take in a living room. And that technology wasn't possible, because film reels, they would go, 15 minutes and you have to replace them, stuff like that. But there's long takes in that movie, and it's kind of all within a living room where a guy finds some rope. He's trying to figure out, did someone kill someone? And it just stays within that scene almost the whole time. So I think that was a real Hitchcock obsession, was like, instead of, how can we play with storytelling where it can stay in one spot but utilize every part of it? I always use the phrase, use every part of the buffalo or every part of the tomato, whatever. Like really milk every little bit of it to bring that tension out. So this was what it led to.
Yeah.
Classic Hitchcock. I found a rope in a room. Was this used for murder?
Yeah.
Like pretty much the plot of Rear Window as well.
Yeah.
By the way, what do you call an Alfred Hitchcock fan? A Hitchcockster? A Hitchcock head?
A Coxman.
A Hitchcocksman.
Yeah.
A little hitch. I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about that.
Little hickey.
Yeah.
Anyways, I like Alfred Hitchcock movies. I like Psycho and The Birds, and I watched this movie in high school too.
Yeah.
Watching it this time, I thought it was a little boring. I'll be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Not my favorite. Not my favorite film to revisit.
Really?
It does take place all on one set, and I feel like this movie would lend itself better as a play. It's very wordy as a film, but we can get into it if you guys want to just start talking about the movie.
Yeah.
Sure.
Going through plot by plot. So the movie is about this guy named L.B. Jeffries. He goes by Jeff for short. He's played by Jimmy Stewart, and he's basically like a action photographer. And again, this is in the 50s, so I thought this was a pretty cool setup, how they establish his character. He's in a wheelchair with a broken leg, and then you see like he has a broken camera on the shelf, and then he has these photos of like race cars like flying right at the camera. And, they established that he got injured doing his job and that he's a pretty well-known and successful photographer. But he's stuck in his house, and I guess all he has to do is look out the window. And that's basically like the setup for the whole movie. You broke your leg, you're going to be here for 3 weeks, and you got nothing to do to entertain yourself except look out the window.
Right.
This is 1954. So I was shocked to see not a single television anywhere in this whole movie. And I was thinking, like, nobody has a TV. Like, this guy can't get a TV.
I thought the same thing. And then
all these rich people. What's that?
Where were the TV? Like, TV event that was a thing back then, right? In 54, they had TVs, didn't they?
Was it in 54? Was it? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Huh. I know the 60s they had them.
All I could say is I know that technology adaptation was much slower back then. And I think I read somewhere that it took like 20 years for televisions to use 1 million users.
Wow.
And it took Facebook like 2 years to use 1 million users. So I guess tech spread slowly back in 1954. So this was your television. Imagine you break your leg and all you have to do is look out the window at your neighbors for 3 weeks. So we get to meet like all his neighbors at this point. There's, this girl who he calls Miss Torso. Honestly, probably the main source of entertainment for this guy. We get like so many butt shots of this girl, and he's always watching her dancing and like having guys over for drinking. There's like a newlywed couple. There's a guy who plays piano. I guess he's a musician. Who else is there?
There's Miss Lonely Heart, who they watch always be alone and sad. There is like the sunbather lady who does like weird sculpting. There's the couple with their dog
that sleeps on the balcony.
Yeah. They sleep on the balcony.
And there's this guy.
Yeah. Nope. Wait. Yeah, there he is.
There's this dude. His name is
Thorwald.
Lars Thorwald.
Yeah.
Fake jewelry salesman and married to a nagging wife.
Who's an invalid? They don't really say, but they kind of say that she's like stuck in the bedroom. She can't go out for some reason. They don't really explain why though.
Yeah, she's like an invalid. Whatever that means. I mean, she got like bit by a dog once or hit by a truck. I don't know. They never. Who knows? It's part of the Hitchcock mystery. It's funny because, in the first act of the movie, it really is just Jimmy Stewart like looking at everybody and passing judgment and commentating. And he kind of watches this guy and his wife, and he just makes this comment like, "Yeah, man, wives are a huge nag." Oh God. And there kind of is this subplot throughout the movie that Jimmy Stewart fears commitment or doesn't want to get married, hates the institution of marriage. I think is a fair thing to say.
Yeah. He definitely seems like he hates women. And then like he's dating Grace Kelly, who like I had never really seen before I saw this movie, and was like, this is one of the most beautiful people to ever live. This fucking guy is like turning her down. Okay, like what the fuck? I don't believe this for a second.
Jimmy Stewart, he's engaged to this socialite named Lisa. I don't know if he hates women because he has this kind of bitchy housekeeper nurse named Stella, who, I mean, I think he loves Stella. If Stella was, 40 years younger, he'd be hooking up with Stella easily.
Yeah, I think he finds some kind of comfort in her, but, he's found a way to trust her, whereas he kind of has maybe some issues with, anybody else. He hasn't quite formed that bond.
Like, his complaint with Grace Kelly is she's too perfect and, like, is too good for him, I guess, and, like, does too many nice things for him, and it's like he just always gets mad about it. It's like, what a problem to have.
Yeah.
Here is Grace Kelly. She is extremely beautiful. I think what he says to Stella is he wishes that she was more ordinary because she's a rich girl. She comes from a rich family and she's used to like going out to balls and social events. Yeah. And he's a poor guy and he's only successful as a photographer because he like visited war zones and was a combat photographer. And he's like, how could I be a combat photographer and date this rich socialite girl? So I think, honestly, he's only with her because she's hot. And she kind of tells him like, I can get you more work. Like you can quit being a combat photographer and be a fashion photographer. And I could hook you up with that career. And he says, oh, would it work for me rolling up to in Jimmy Stewart's voice, rolling up to a fashion shoot with combat boots and a Jeep and a 3-day beard? Which in 1954, I guess, was crazy. But I think now, like, it's exactly what the future of fashion photographers are doing. You would have been so progressive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so he doesn't want to get married to Lisa is her name. And he has this conversation with her. And I guess we'll spend time on this because I really feel like this is kind of the main plot of this movie. I think it masquerades as a murder movie, but it's really like a relationship drama between Jimmy and Lisa. You know what I mean?
Sure. In
my opinion, because I felt like they spent more time with these two characters talking about getting married than they did equal time, at least, with solving this murder.
Yeah, I do think the movie changes for the better once she's in on it. When she agrees that there's something fishy going on.
Yeah.
Then the movie really takes off. And that takes a while, honestly. It's like 40 minutes before that starts. But once it's him, Stella, and Lisa on it, then it's like, okay, now we're cooking.
Yeah. By the way, I mentioned there's a murder and I kind of skipped over this. So, this is Lisa, this is Jimmy, this is kind of the setup here. One night in the middle of the night, Jeff, played by Jimmy Stewart, hears a woman scream, "Don't," and she hears like a glass breaking. Then he wakes up a few hours later and he sees Mr. Thurwald leaving the apartment carrying some suitcases at like 3 a.m. This is the catalyst to the big murder mystery. And by the way, this movie was parodied in an episode of The Simpsons.
Yes, it was. Bart of Darkness, I think is what it's called.
Yeah, it's the episode where they get a pool, but Bart breaks his leg and he can't swim in the pool all summer. So he just spies on Ned Flanders and he thinks Flanders killed his wife, Maude.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
I get the joke now of like he sends Lisa over, goes, "Oh no, Lisa," which is the same thing.
And if you are a big Shia LaBeouf fan, which I know 90% of our audience is, you're probably thinking, this is the same plot to the Shia LaBeouf movie Disturbia. Yes, it is.
Yep.
Maybe we'll have to review that in a later episode.
Well, part of the trivia for this movie is that there was a lawsuit about that. So.
Oh, really?
Oh, I didn't know that.
What do you know?
Well, let me tell you. They said this is a ripoff, and so they tried to sue. I guess Steven Spielberg was a producer of Disturbia, so he was like, he was part of the lawsuit, and then the judge ended up looking at both movies and said, like, there's enough difference that it's not a ripoff, and they don't get a sue. So it was thrown out after everything, but it went to trial or whatever, court.
Yeah, thank goodness for that, because so many great movies are just rip-offs of other movies. So if we can't rip off other movies, it's going to be the end of cinema.
Seriously.
It's just like how every movie that has a day repeating over and over has to make a joke about Groundhog's Day. I think that's a legal requirement.
You're right.
You're right.
I've seen that in like 4 different shows or movies now where it's like Groundhog's Day, and it's like, at least you're copping to it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, if you couldn't rip off movies, you would lose the horror genre entirely. You'd be like Jason Voorhees is a ripoff of the xenomorph from Alien, which is a ripoff of Frankenstein. Where does it end?
Clark Griswold does the Friday the 13th thing, and that's kind of the whole premise of the movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Anyway, so that's the setup. So, from this point on, he's just trying to catch Lars Thurwald in this murder.
Yeah. And
along the way, Lisa keeps trying to hook up with him, like hardcore. She's trying to bang him this whole movie, and he's like not having it. And she wants to get married, but he's not having that either.
Yeah.
He'd rather spy on this chick, Miss Torso.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably the most tame photo I could find of this girl on the internet.
Yeah, I really was shocked. There's a part when she's like getting stuff out of the fridge and like her ass is just out in the air, and it's like, man, for 54, this must have caused some waves. Like this must have done something.
Yeah, this movie rules. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
For me, my problem with this movie is there's too much spinning of the wheels, I think, in this part of the movie where we are right now. It's like, okay, we think Thurwald killed his wife. What are we going to do about it? And Jeff, calls his friend who's a detective, and they have long conversations. The detective, tries to talk him into thinking he's crazy,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I saw Thurwald carry a knife and a saw out in the middle of the night. Well, Jeff, you ever owned a saw? How many people you kill with it? They have this conversation over and over again. And I'm like, Doyle is his name. Doyle. Right. There's a fucking murder happening across the way. Can we just, the movie's going to end where we go and solve this murder. And I don't mind the conversation with the detective. I just felt like it was too much back and forth. And then, it's that mixed with him just watching everybody in the apartment who's not involved in this murder,
Yeah.
Oh, the lonely woman. Oh, she's going on a date. Oh, they're having a party up there at the musician's house. Okay. Oh, it's raining on the couple.
Yeah.
But I mean, give me your take on it, you guys. What were you saying?
Oh, go ahead, Rocco.
I love that stuff. For me, just existing in this kind of space where, you know, I don't know. I really like how I think Hitchcock nailed all these little situations and personalities in a way that like 50s movies weren't spending the time on. You know what I mean? The woman, like, there's a woman that he's watching that is pretending to go on a date with someone. Like, she's by herself and she's just doing that, you know, and it's kind of heartbreaking. And I feel like a lot of these older movies wouldn't really like lend time to little lame things people do, you know, if that makes sense. And so I honestly really like, the detective thing is one thing, whatever with that, but I really liked the time spent on these little scenes and just letting them exist. I don't know, like it was, I had the same kind of voyeuristic feelings that like he did, like where I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, let's check in on those guys. What's going on with them? You know, it was a slice of reality that I never saw in an older movie like that. So I really like that stuff.
Doing some research on this film, I found out that so basically this is obviously one big set, and then the camera never really leaves that room.
Which I love that too. I love this. I love huge sets, you know, and whatever. And the fact that they pulled this off back then was really cool.
What he did, which I thought was genius, all of the places, there's 31 apartments in total, but the ones that the people who are featured all had running water and everything else.
Yeah.
All that stuff. And so Hitchcock said, you guys don't get trailers, just stay there.
Yeah.
And so he left them there for the whole time. So they're there for months. So they really felt like they were at home.
That's cool.
And so like a lot of times, some of the footage that you're talking about, Rocco, I think was just shot when they were just not even aware that they're being filmed. They were just like doing their shit because they've been waiting for so long, you know? So
yeah,
I think it's a good idea to make someone feel like home by having them trapped in that certain place that they can't leave, you know?
Yeah. And I do like all the little funny vignettes too. Another racy one was there's like a newlywed couple and the guy keeps going outside to like smoke a cigarette and then you keep hearing his name being called again and he's just like,
yeah.
Like, I love all these little things happening. It feels like a living, breathing world, and I really like that. I really enjoy that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. You know, like I said, I feel like this would be a phenomenal play. And if we could build a set and have all of those apartment things live on stage, it would be mind-blowing. And I realize this is a movie that's over 50, 60 years old, but I felt like keeping the camera in Jimmy Stewart's apartment just kind of made it stale. You know, it felt more like a play than a movie.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not a problem. And, you know, Alfred Hitchcock is a genius. I'm not going to say he's not.
Yeah.
This one wasn't my favorite Hitchcock movie.
I think the reason why I like that, Derek, is that you feel trapped just like he is. So like, I do agree that I would love to get out and check out that fucking place and have when she eventually leaves and goes outside the courtyard, I wish I could go down there with her, but just like him, I'm stuck in this apartment and I can't do it.
Yeah, and I think that kind of thing that you're bringing up, Derek, I think that's definitely a different strokes for different folks kind of thing, for sure. And I completely understand that. I think there's definitely a perfect argument for that environment getting like, okay, we've been in here a long time. Can we move on? And I think that makes perfect sense to me. But I don't know what it is for me. Like stuff like this or chamber pieces or whatever. There's a lot of movies I love that I'm consistently told like this is a play. Rocco, it's a play, you know. And I get it and I totally understand that. That's totally valid. But for some reason, I think when it's done really well, it adds another layer of tension to me. Like, oh my God, we're you know, like I'm in here with them. And this movie, even though it's this old, because I have that mentality, it adds to the tension of everything. When something bad happens across the way, I'm like, oh no. I don't want to be in here anymore. I start to feel that claustrophobia. I remember the same kind of thing happened. I had a lot of friends who didn't really care for that Hateful Eight movie that Tarantino did. So I always put it off. I was like, oh, I heard it wasn't that good. But then I saw it and it was like, this might be like the most intense thing Quentin Tarantino's ever done, because I get into that. They're almost in one room that entire movie. And for me, for whatever reason, that locks me into a certain mentality and I start sweating. But I also understand that other people who may not click with that would feel like, can we please leave this room already? It's interesting. There's a lot of different ways to look at it.
Stuff, honestly, that is overly wordy. I think you can listen to people talking without stopping for way longer than I can. Because halfway through these scenes in these movies, I go, yeah, I get it, guys. When is this conversation ending? It's just two guys in the room talking.
Yeah.
They're talking.
Yeah. And I agree, Derek, that there are times where it's like, oh my God. And then like the fucking detective comes back to tell me he's wrong again. Like, we already did this.
Yeah.
Either
it's more talking.
Yeah.
And I feel like,
now or don't.
And I'm sitting here going like, I know someone is going over to that apartment at some point in this movie.
Yeah.
Stop talking.
Yeah.
Go. Do it.
I think for
Do
me,
the movie.
yeah, I think for me, and again, I already said like the detective thing. I'm not even, I think you're right on that. But I think in general, when it's something like that, and it's like, yo, this movie, they've just been talking in a room for a long time. You know, I think there's definitely an argument to be made about like, if you're making a movie, do something you can only do in a movie, and get dynamic with it in a certain way that you can't do in a book, or you can't do in on a stage. I definitely understand that argument. But for some reason, I don't mind a lot of dialogue in one place as a play. Like, I also mentioned I really like Lincoln, and that movie has tons of scenes where it's like, wow, they've just been talking right here for a long time. I think I'm always impressed that people can do that, and I think for me, it's like, it's almost like a verbal stunt. Like, I'm so in awe of people who can not only perform that, but someone who could write that much and not get lost along the way. And I don't know, I definitely see the argument for not doing that, but I'm always impressed by it for some reason, if it's done really well. So I don't know, it's totally different strokes, but I didn't mind it in this movie. Than the detective thing. I agree.
By contrast, it's funny because I think the only other film we've done from the 50s was my pick, Night of the Hunter,
right?
Which was 1955.
Yeah,
year after this one. This movie had $1 million budget, and Night of the Hunter, I'm just looking up, had a $600,000 budget.
Yeah,
which is interesting because that movie, which we saw in a previous episode, goes all over the place. Down the river and through the barns, and it's this big bank heist. And I'm not really making commentary other than to say it's funny how this movie spent twice as much to stay in one apartment complex.
Yeah.
And one room.
But it really is, that set is just fucking incredible. Yeah. Like it's really all it boils down to is so many different living spaces, and the day and night cycle was something they had like never done either. To have that much daylight, they were like blowing out the power and stuff like that. You might know more about that, Sean. I don't know, but
yeah, they said that the lights were so hot. And so they basically built it as tall as they could, and they even in the studio that they filmed it in, they had to remove the floor to get down to the basement to make it bigger because it was too short.
Yeah.
So like all the stuff in the courtyard was a new floor that they made because they had to go down deeper. So when the lights were so hot when it was daytime, that it set off the fire sprinklers, and like it started like destroying everything. It was a whole fucking problem. And so like. Yeah, I think all that money went into building this like actual working space to like.
Oh yeah, clearly.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is still funny what you're saying. Yeah,
definitely. Apartment complex cityscape inside one room. It's like the Universal Studios ride.
Yeah.
From the 50s.
You know what's a movie? This is not to go on a big side tangent, but you know what's another movie that did this in a modern movie that. I don't even think people realize they did the same thing. They built the whole apartment, gave people their own
Disturbia. No, what?
no, Lady in the Water.
Oh
yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you ever revisit that, if the Shyamalan classic, Lady in the Water, unanimous Shyamalan favorite.
Oh wow!
If you ever go back to that is they built the entire complex and the pool at the centerpiece of it, and they gave everyone their apartment. They did that, and he cited Hitchcock as like an inspiration to do that, and it all paid off, of course.
You look at even like the intro to Shyamalan's movies, like look at Signs.
Yeah.
When that movie starts, it's like, this is a Hitchcock movie. Like just the credits is a Hitchcock movie.
Yeah, that one. I remember sitting in the theater. I mean, we were like kids then. And even back then, I was sitting there going, oh my God, could you ape Hitchcock anymore?
Yeah.
Those like spotlight titles. It was like, oh my God. Anyway, but this isn't a Shyamalan show, Sorry.
Enough about that.
Yeah.
So, back to the plot.
Yeah.
One day they discover a neighbor's dog has been murdered, and it's the lady who lives on the balcony. She always is lowering her dog to the ground in this basket from a pulley system, I guess to let it go pee and poop and stuff. She discovers it's been murdered, and she like shouts at the whole neighborhood, like, you monsters, doesn't anybody care about anybody in this neighborhood anymore? You killed my dog, he never did nothing but like you. It's pretty much verbatim. And Jeff, he watches the whole ordeal and he goes, the only person who didn't come to the window was old Lars Thurwald. Whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so once again, he calls up his friend Jeff to rat him out as a detective. I think he calls Jeff like 3 or 4 times in this movie, so I won't bring it up anymore how many times
the one time that he calls him, there is one time where he whispers the entire conversation, and it drives me fucking nuts.
I hated that too, but we'll get to that in a second.
Okay. But last thing about the Thurwald thing, I loved the only place that's all dark except for the glow of like his cigarette or whatever that is.
It has to be a cigar. That's a
cigar. Yeah, that looks fucking cool. Like that's still a cool effect.
Yep.
Yeah, I read trivia actually that it was a Fatty Boom Blatty Bluntsky that Hitchcock smoked himself.
Wow,
nice.
Cool.
Yeah, he was
a cameo.
Everyone in the film industry knew he was the fat one that could roll a fat one. So that was.
That's not true. This was an adults only episode.
Oh,
so
yeah. Whoops.
Still on brand.
Sorry, guys.
Doyle and the police are no help, so Jeff convinces Stella and Lisa, the 2 ladies, to go dig up the garden in front of Thurgood's house because they think the dog was sniffing around there, and that's maybe why the dog died. To its credit, what I think is special about this movie that might be lost on modern audiences is that the role of the women in this movie, they're really kind of the heroes because Jimmy Stewart can't leave his apartment. He's stuck in a chair. So they have to do most of the sleuthing. Lisa pulls a stunt. She does the only stunt in the whole movie, which was legitimately impressive. She crawls from a balcony into an open window.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, was that her? I
There's no way that was Grace Kelly.
Yeah, I tried to look that up. Like, that wasn't her, was it? And I couldn't find it.
Stunt Grace Kelly.
Yeah.
Stunt Kelly.
Yeah.
Grace
and then
Felly. She fell.
Machine Stunt Kelly. All right, I'm done. That's it.
That's what we're gonna go with. This all happens rather quickly. They go to dig up the rose bushes. There's nothing there. At this point, they've been fucking with Lars Thurwald, and they've convinced him, like, yo, go meet me. I want to talk to you. I know you killed your wife. Come meet me at a bar. But they're not at the bar. They just got him out of the house. So then Lisa sneaks into the house looking for evidence. Then Lars comes home. He catches her. He starts like fighting with her. This was pretty intense. She's like screaming for Jimmy Stewart to help, like, help me, help me.
Yeah.
And he's like, turn the lights off.
Yeah. When you're seeing her in there,
like, Jeff, help me, Jeff. And he's like, don't say my fucking name. Leave me alone. What were you saying, Rocco?
Oh, when you see her there and he's coming through the door, unlocking the door and all that stuff, like that is a tension that still works. Again, like there's a lot of things that they made to be tense back in the 50s, a lot of movies, and it doesn't quite hold up. But I don't know. I still watch this now like, oh God, fuck.
Yeah, and the shot's perfect of like him at the door.
Yeah.
And like you see the other side of her, the window, like going through the kitchen, like, oh fuck, he's down running through. It's like, it's still like awesome.
Yeah. This is where the movie gets good. So Jeff calls the police, and gosh, they respond quickly enough. They literally come up quick enough to break up the fight mid-fight between Lisa and Thurwald. I keep wanting to say Thurgood.
Yeah, Thurgood Marshall.
Yeah. Jeff is watching the whole time as the police are there, and he watches that Lisa kind of gives him a signal. She's wearing a wedding ring. This is what they've been looking for. This is Thurwald's wife's wedding ring. I guess it proves that she's dead, because what woman wouldn't wear her wedding ring? By the way, this whole movie, I'm sorry, I'm sitting in front of a window and I keep getting this awful reflection on my face.
Oh, that's fine.
Sorry, guys. This whole movie, so much of like the sleuthing logic is based on like Jimmy Stewart's deep understanding of all women. It's like, she left her favorite purse. She must be dead. You know, what woman would leave a purse behind? Thurgood's got a lot of his wife's jewelry. That wife's taking a dirt nap. There's no way a wife. I think at one point they say, like, there's no way a woman would put jewelry in a handbag and let it get all scratched up like that. Yeah, she must be dead.
Yeah.
So the whole plot hinges on discovering this wedding ring, which she finds. Jimmy Stewart's like watching through binoculars, and she signals, and Thurwald sees her signaling, and he like looks across. Actually, I think it's this look. He like looks Jimmy Stewart right in the eyes. It's pretty creepy.
Yeah, that's a good shot. That's a good shot.
Yeah, and then he knows, like, oh, you're the guy who's been fucking with me. You're the guy who's been, like, saying, you know, I killed my wife. And as they haul Lisa away, this is the scene you were talking about, Sean. He calls up his friend Doyle and whispers everything that's going on in the most heinous, lip-smacking, forced whisper that goes on forever, and it's grating on the nerves to listen to him talk.
It really drives me crazy. I hated it then, and I hated it more now. It's just like, oh my god, please talk normal. And like, why?
Yeah.
Oh, do it. You tell me why. Do it.
Imagine, everybody, if you can, somebody doing a Jimmy Stewart impression where they have to whisper and they're really scared that their neighbor is going to kill them. It's as bad as you think.
Doyle, the neighbor, they're good. He said we got the ring, Doyle, and I told you we got it. And he's coming to kill us.
And it goes on forever. I make it sound funnier than it actually is. Then Thurgood basically shows up to kick Jimmy Stewart's ass. And this is the big finale to the movie. And Sean warned you this finale sucked. It sucked when I was a kid. It sucks now. You assume Thurgood is just going to kill Jimmy Stewart. I don't know, like shoot him with a gun or pick him up and throw him out the window or something, you know, ice him, get him out of the way. But he walks slowly towards Jimmy Stewart, and Jimmy Stewart, because he's a photographer, has these flash bulbs, and he keeps going like, and then Thurgood will be like,
oh, God. Oh.
Yeah. That used to crack me up when I saw I saw this for the first time in like high school too. It was like English class or something. And yeah, that whole device was killing me.
It's pretty bad, even for Hitchcock. We have to be honest. Yeah. The finale to this movie is a little weak.
Yeah.
But, you know, despite the flashes, Thurgood makes it all the way across the room to Jimmy Stewart and starts kicking his ass. Just fucking walloping on this dude.
Well,
Jimmy Stewart is in a wheelchair. He can't do anything.
I'm watching this now and think, why did we do the flash situation? That was so lame, and it didn't even work, and it took a minute to be stupid. Like,
well, and here's the thing: if he did it, I would give the movie one time. Like, he does the flash, and then he has 1 second of like, oh shit, you know, and then maybe in that moment he turns his wheelchair to trip him or something. Just one, like one flash. I'd be fine with that. I'd buy that.
Yeah.
But he does that like 7 times, and it's like, oh, not again, no.
This is like a 1950s movie thing. You know, it's like the end of a monster movie where the monster's just walking down a hallway and the military's just sitting there with their guns like, wait, fellas, wait for him to get closer.
Yeah.
Don't shoot yet. Don't shoot yet.
Yeah.
That's like how all these movies end.
Right.
Maybe it's kind of a Los Illuminados thing where the Flash hurts them. You know, remember that?
It must be.
Yeah. So maybe he had the parasite. You never know.
Yeah. So then Thorwald starts wailing on Jimmy Stewart, and he literally like tries to pick him up. He doesn't try. He does. He throws him out the window.
Yeah.
In an awesome use of green screen, reminiscent of Die Hard. He just falls away from camera. Ah!
There's a part in this where I don't get it. It's so fucking bonkers. So Jimmy Stewart's hanging outside the window with his cast, and Thorwald is like holding, like trying to throw him off or whatever. And then it finally cuts down. You're on the lower level to see them, like the situation happening in the apartment. And the police officer says, "Quick, give me your gun." And the guy throws his gun, and then the officer points it at him, and then nothing happens. He puts the gun away, and then they move on to the next. Like, what? Why did we? Because we finally leave the apartment to get this shot, and you don't do anything with it. Like, what happened?
You know, in 1954, Hitchcock knew even pointing a gun at Jimmy Stewart, you'd be like, "No, don't shoot him."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what it was, I think.
Oh, it's crazy.
So they throw Jimmy Stewart out the window, which, can we pause and just say, he fucking deserves it. This fucking peeping Tom asshole has been watching this like teenage girl shake her ass for like 3 weeks straight. Throw his ass out the fucking window.
Yeah, that's what gets coming to him.
Just because it so happens that a guy who killed his wife threw him out the window, Jimmy Stewart is suddenly the good guy in this situation. Okay. All right. That's the end of the movie. The police are there. They're like walking up as Jimmy Stewart is getting thrown out the window. He gets thrown out the window, and they're like, "Well, go arrest Thorwald at least." And they arrest him. And I guess it's because, you know, they never wanted to believe that Thorwald could actually be a criminal.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Until they literally saw him throw a guy out a window. They're like, maybe he is a murderer after all. And so they finally arrest him. Jimmy Stewart lives, but now has 2 broken legs, which means, watch out, Miss Torso. You got 6 more weeks of Jimmy Stewart staring at your ass. He's never leaving that window. And I think he gets married to Lisa.
Yeah.
When Lisa goes over to that apartment, she proves, like, I'm not just a socialite. I can be in a combat zone. So all's well that ends well.
Yep. Yeah.
That's Rear Window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A cinema classic.
Overall, I still love this movie, and I consider it one of the best. I really do like it. There are definitely things like that that's like, okay, maybe this worked in 54, but why are we doing this now? But overall, I still think the idea is great, and the set's impressive, and it's super suspenseful still. So
yeah, I agree. I agree with everything you said, and also these things that are dumb in it that we're picking apart, I think it's totally valid. I don't know what it is. There's things that are bad in a movie that will bring it down a notch. This movie, for some reason, those bad parts of it make it more endearing to me. I don't know what that is. The Flash thing is so stupid, but it cracks me up so much that I just like it more. I don't know how to explain that. I really don't. For me, maybe this is gonna sound bold. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. I really love it, and I think the tension still holds up. I love the set design, the art design of all of it, everyone having their own little world and these little vignettes of people just doing their thing. There's something just unusual about it that I love. There's an unusual energy that I love about it. And the premise is just awesome, and I just think it's a good story about enjoying and going through life as a observer, as a from a distance, kind of doing that versus when do you get involved and actually put yourself out there in all forms of life. I don't know. I really As just a classic old movie, this is one of my favorite movies. And I still really like it despite all those goofy things in it. So are we doing shakers?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
This is a 5 for me. 5 shakes. I still love it.
For me, I do love it. I won't give it 5, but I will give it 4. I think it's a classic old movie. If you want to show someone a movie from the olden days, this is the one I think to show them, where it's like, hey, yeah, there's some goofy shit in here, but it's still a great movie.
There's stuff, I do think there's old movies that do hold up worse than this one. You know, like despite this or that, I think you could do worse. But
Jimmy Stewart was much more of an asshole in this movie than I remembered him being.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
He's a huge asshole in this movie. I think I disagree with you guys. I think there are better movies from the 50s, and there are better movies from before the 50s than Rear Window. And I think there are better Hitchcock movies than Rear Window. So, I feel like the flaws in this movie were flaws back then, too. Mm-hmm. I feel like the ending was weak even for 1954. I think there are other movies from that era that have stronger endings and are just more engaging, personally. So, I give this movie a 3 out of 5 because it is Alfred Hitchcock. It's not bad. There's nothing bad about it. I just think it could be a lot better, personally.
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't even disagree with a lot of that. I just, for me, I don't know. I just enjoy every time this movie's on. I enjoy it. That's why I gave it my thing. I never really. I'm like, this is one of those that I'm always down when it's on. I'm there. But but I will say it isn't my favorite Hitchcock movie. I do.
I'll tell you what. If I turn this movie on and it's a Doyle talking to Jeffries scene, I am changing the channel. I'll be real with you. Too many of those. Yeah. But okay, so that's a 5, 4,
and 3.
3, so it's a solid 12.
And we'll get Kevin and Garrett in here to give a 2 and a 1. Countdown. All
right, so Rocco, I believe your choice is next for next week's episode.
Yeah. So, this movie got a little dark sometimes, got a little, risky. We're going to take it even darker. A great tragedy has struck this nation and this globe. Daft Punk has broken up. I know this is a little while ago at this point, but we're still all mourning the loss. World's in a dark place. So it's time to visit an unusual title in the Daft Punk film catalog. We all remember Tron. Well, maybe not everyone, but they did the whole anime thing with Interstellar 5555. We're not doing that. We're going with their obscure live action film that they did. When their album Human After All came out, they did a live action movie connected to it called Electroma. And not everyone has seen this, so that's going to be our next. If you want to watch it, I mean, I guess you didn't hear this from me. It's on YouTube. If you want to watch it for before next week's episode, and it's like an hour, so you got no excuse. Watch it. Come watch us talk about it next time.
I did a Daft Punk drawing.
Whoa,
there it is.
That's pretty good.
That's the drawing that broke them up.
This would have been this concept art for the next album that never happened.
Yeah. It was called Stickmen After All.
No, it's not what it was called.
Oh.
It was called Daft Punk's Greatest Hits.
Oh, whoops. And they went looking and they didn't have any.
Anyways.
All right.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.